So not only do we see most of the superheroes in America murdered, but we also see Wolverine being thrown into the mix against some of his most powerful and iconic villains, with Wolverine even failing to save some of the heroes' lives. Now this is the Hero Informer, and let's get into it. So there are a couple very important distinctions to note here. First of all, this comic being in an alternate universe, meaning it doesn't follow the exact 616 canon timeline, and even sets itself up for some very crazy twists. And the second thing is the backstory of what happened here. As the comic even goes on to say and explain, 10 days ago there was an asteroid, one known as Asteroid M, that burned up upon re-entry into Earth. And as it did, it killed a lot of people with it, including Magneto. And because of this, when Magneto breathed his last breath, when he died, it released the largest EMP in the history of mankind, turning the entire northern hemisphere without power straight into darkness. But somewhere where none of these events affected it nearly as much is the Savage Lands, where we see our main story initially pick up, with a local tribe there hunting and trying to survive its lands. But now they have a special guest in the form of the Wolverine, which is not only the most randomest thing ever, but also the coolest thing. Like, who doesn't love to see Wolverine just riding a Triceratops? But it seems the reason why Logan is on this trip hunting with this local tribe is because getting out in the wild, hunting and maiming animals, giant, dangerous, carnivorous animals, is Wolverine's version of a vacation. Fun. As when a large beast finally does emerge and chomps killing the Triceratops that he was riding on, Wolverine does not falter and run like the rest of the tribe does. No, he stands his ground, pops his claws with a smile on his face, getting ready to engage in combat with the dinosaur. And of course, I say combat like this isn't a one-sided, short-lived stomp of a battle. Wolverine just absolutely mauling this creature, because being an almost unkillable mutant with indestructible claws has its advantages. One's being that he can slice and tear, which you see him literally disemboweling the creature without fear of dying or getting hurt. But even while he is covered in the guts of the creature he just cut into, he goes on to say to an off-screen figure that I came down here to unwind, unplug, and disappear. But then you made a mistake of interrupting my vacation. And this person he is talking to is none other than Nick Fury with S.H.I.E.L.D. And Wolverine, now being ticked off that his vacation is being interrupted by more superhero and government stuff, he tells Fury that he better have a good reason for being here. But Fury himself is flabbergasted, with him going on to say, "My God, you really don't know, do you? While you were down here, disconnected, the entire world has lost its mind. And it's on its last leg. Logan, I'm here to recruit you. I need you and America needs you." But Wolverine immediately goes to shut this down, turning away saying, "Hate to break it to you, but I'm Canadian," which on any other time would have been it. Wolverine would have walked away, conversation over, he wouldn't help. But Nick Fury then says something very alarming. He tells Wolverine that the bad news is there really isn't a Canada anymore, which of course catches Logan's attention, as he does eventually agree to go with them as we move over and pick up in the middle of the helicarrier, and the last remnants of whatever is left of S.H.I.E.L.D. itself. But here we see Fury further explain the situation, talking specifically to his strike team and whatever heroes that are left that he can gather, which we saw Wolverine, but we also see Captain America and Bucky as they sit on board of the last 3 surviving helicarriers that weren't already destroyed. But Nick Fury goes on to further say and explain that nearly 100 million people are already dead, but they should be grateful because it could have been way worse. But the fact remains that what we knew as the West probably has less than a week before it's finally gone for good. And those millions very quickly become billions dead. And the only thing that saved Nick Fury and the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. from perishing was that S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time of the meteor and Magneto were on the other side of the world, running a secret operation. And as Captain America speaks up saying, "Aren't we focusing on the wrong thing? Shouldn't we be helping saving as many people we can, not running some kind of military op that we are here?" But Nick Fury goes on to simply explain his plans, saying that the EMP that was released fried everything. There isn't a working phone, computer, light bulb, train, or plane for thousands of miles that will ever work again. And the only way to save people now is to find a way to turn the lights back on. So no, this isn't some kind of military operation. It's a heist. A heist in which they are trying to steal the only cold fusion seed reactor to ever exist. Something that would generate perpetual energy regardless of the EMP that went off. But there are 2 problems, of course. The first one is, well, they don't have it and it isn't theirs. And the second problem is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants currently own it, which is being ran and controlled by Mastermind, who is a villain that can basically create illusions, mind control, and any other trickery like that. And so with them being a couple 100 miles out, everybody gears up, ready to storm this front and sneak in to try and save what is left of America, and possibly save the rest of the world from crumbling along with it. Because as Nick Fury goes on to say, we'll be at the site in 20 minutes. Everybody say your prayers, get right with God, and be ready to do your job. And of course, in normal comic fashion, nothing can ever go right for the heroes, as 20 minutes later, instead of safely landing at the landing zone, one of the last 3 remaining S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarriers just randomly explodes. But as it will turn out, it's anything but random, as we find out the Mastermind is using his mind control on some of the different SHIELD agents, causing the helicarriers to attack and destroy each other. And as the last two rocket towards each other for a head-on collision, everybody panics and rushes out, with only the immediate strike team having parachutes and ready to deploy under, leaving the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Nick Fury on the helicarrier, sacrificing himself and dying as the two collide and explode. But it seems Fury's sacrifice won't be in vain, as the heroes do manage to jump down and land safely, getting ready to complete their mission and try to save the world as it is now. But of course, even though the heroes have a general plan, they are still going in kind of blind. You see, they don't know the immediate danger, what kind of teams, what kind of villains are fully here. So they decide to split up, which in hindsight probably isn't the best idea, as you will see it goes wrong very, very quickly. But still, individually, these heroes are very capable on their own, but not capable enough, as we see the heroes get blindsided and jumped by various villains. Deadpool, Omega Red, Sabertooth even, taking out these SHIELD agents one by one, killing them as they move on to the heroes. With Sabertooth blindsiding and taking on Bucky, knocking him out. Captain America sliding down the side of a hill using his shield, is also blindsided by Omega Red being wrapped up and captured as well. And lastly, the last one standing, Wolverine, probably the most capable hero out of the three, which let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Wolverine is a better combatant and could beat Captain America in a fight? Because if you think about it, Wolverine is really just a better Captain America. Now maybe technically he isn't as strong, fast, because he doesn't have a super soldier serum, but his indestructible adamantium skeleton and healing factor more than makes up for it. And while Wolverine isn't, say, as skilled in hand-to-hand combat, he probably also makes up for it with his experience. Being almost 200 plus years, he has been in and a part of all kinds of wars and battles. But let me know in the comments, who do you think would actually win? But as I said before, Wolverine being the last one standing, he gets the worst of it, as we see the villain trio, Sabertooth, Omega Red, and Deadpool appear out of nowhere to gang up on Wolverine, with Sabertooth being the closest thing to Wolverine's arch enemy that decides instead of taking Logan from afar and ambushing him, they were going to give him a fair quote-unquote fight, as they all jump in starting the battle. Now Wolverine is able to somewhat hold his own for a little bit, but eventually he is overwhelmed, because technically each of these villains in their own right could battle Wolverine on an almost even playing field. So with them all teaming up, eventually and unfortunately Logan does go down. And with that, the heroes then wake up, defeated and chained together in some sort of secret hideout. And as Captain America points out, he can feel something is wrong with his chest. They all can. And this is especially puzzling for Wolverine, as his healing factor shouldn't allow someone to implant anything or do anything to him. But as it seems now, the heroes have totally got outclassed and outmaneuvered. And the villain Mastermind, who is the leader and, well, mastermind of this entire operation for the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that are here, goes on to greet the defeated heroes and explain to Wolverine how he did it, because he goes on to say that even though he has a brilliant and gifted mind, it took no small number of permutations and combinations of Omega Red's diseases before they found one strong enough to temporarily shut off his healing factor, so they can get something inside of him, specifically behind his ribcage, so his body wouldn't be able to push it out as he healed. And as it turns out, the thing inside of Wolverine and Captain America and Bucky here is a bomb planted deep within their chest that they can't really get out. But it seems like things aren't done getting as crazy, as we see even Colossus are working with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Out of his own free will, it seems like. Why? Well, because it seems he is done with the West, which includes his heroes in Wolverine now, putting previous X-Men against X-Men. But it seems like Colossus still has somewhat of a heart now, as he goes on to say, perhaps I should let you guys go home to help your people prepare for a cold winter and to bury those who do not survive it. Basically declaring war on the West and that they plan to come and raise down whatever the Asteroid and Magneto didn't. But Deadpool then goes on to say, while pushing a button on his device, that not only were the bombs his idea, which of course they were, but they're also meant as a deterrent. As you see, this remote control device he has is the trigger, and so just in case they decide not to leave and continue to fight to steal the seed, it will go boom, killing them instantly. And so with them actually free now, they of course start to make their escape, but not all of them, as Wolverine decides to stay, because not only does he think he's not going to make the trip, but he has unfinished business here with the other mutants. And for Captain America and Bucky to let everybody know what happened here and see if they can get help, as the two run off to try and get out of the bomb's radius and range. But Wolverine mainly stayed behind because he wants answers, because as you know previously he was in the Savage Lands on a vacation, if you will, so all of this happening now is crazy and new to him. He has no idea what or who or how he's supposed to process this. So as he starts to question Colossus, Colossus just says, what is there to even explain? Not only did we not cause any of this, but we are just as much victims as this as you are. And the only reason they have power from the crazy EMP is because a villain known as Eunice the Untouchable died protecting this place. And here's where things get absolutely crazy, because Deadpool then chimes in saying, and there's the theme for today, everybody has got to go sometime. And with that, he looks down at his remote control that has 3 distinct buttons, one for Captain America, one for Bucky, and the other for Wolverine, as he literally starts pressing each one individually. And of course these are tied to the bombs all in their chest, as the first one he touches is the Winter Soldier's, blowing him up and killing him instantly. And of course next is Captain America, who is also next to go and perish by the hands of this evil team. And of course lastly is Wolverine, but thinking quickly he then pops his claws and starts to dig into his own chest, thinking to pull the bomb out before they even have a chance or the satisfaction of exploding him from the inside out. But Colossus then says he really wishes it wouldn't have to be this way, but it does, and someone must lose. And today, it is the West. And it's you, old friend, as Deadpool pushes the button saying bye bye America, and to you, Wolverine, their hat, blowing Wolverine up from the inside out, leaving nothing but blood bits in his adamantium skeleton, as this brotherhood of evil mutants look at the mess and then turn around walking away, because in their own words, now they must take the seed and reclaim and relight their half of the world, because Mastermind, who is in charge of the team here, is using this opportunity to finally destroy the West, as he goes on to even say as much, telling everybody that when the sun rises, it will shine on their flourishing lands and on the graves of the West, for they will all be gone and there will be no one left to remember them. But just then the corpse and bloody bits of Wolverine start to move, still smoking from the force of the explosion, as ligaments, muscles, and tissues start to slowly rebuild themselves, regenerate, as he starts to get up piece by piece, bit by bit. Logan absolutely angry that he was betrayed, almost assassinated, and watched his friends die in front of him, as we see a gnarly shot of Wolverine healing up, looking absolutely feral. And of course with the title of the comic being named Wolverine's Revenge, it is almost guaranteed that he will get sweet, sweet revenge for what they have done to him. He was a lucky one to survive, while Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or Bucky, wasn't. Because of this, we now see Logan at a funeral, a private funeral where Captain America's body, or whatever was left of it, and his shield are, as Nick Fury, who was previously thought to be dead, but of course being Fury who he is, it was a LMD, a life model decoy, and it was the last one he had. So right now he is on his last life, with Fury even coming out basically depressed, thinking that they have lost, America has failed. He goes on to say, they were the best of us and they will be missed. But if I have to be honest, maybe they were the lucky ones to go out so clean, being spared of what's to come. As we see a widespread panel of Wolverine looking over all the bodies and other heroes who have died, alongside of course Captain America with the shield there, really solidifying the fact that right now, Wolverine, a Canadian, might be the only one capable and in the way to save America, which is a little ironic twist of fate. But as Logan, being as determined as ever, goes on to ask Nick Fury, what are you going to do now? Fury isn't like himself. He is almost down in a pathetic type of way, as he goes on to say there really isn't anything to do. We failed. The Empire has fallen, and now, if we're lucky, only a couple 100 million people on this continent are going to die. And how he has seen the horrors of multiple wars. World War I, the Cold War, Vietnam War, and he tells Logan that this next war coming up, he can promise him that this is going to be worse in every way. So what does he plan to do? Well, he is going to find himself a nice bottle of bourbon after crawling into a hole with his best gun. Then, soon enough, he'll see his friends on the other side. Really just showing you how pathetic and down, depressed Fury is, and how hopeless the situation seems. But Fury then goes on to ask Logan, what about you? What are you going to do? And of course, with this series being named Wolverine's Revenge, he has his mind set on one particular thing: vengeance. But moving over 3 entire months later, we then pick up seeing Logan run in the Dakotas, as he is running through the forest looking for something in particular, but he is stopped by another mutant named Danny Moonstar. And if you don't know who she is, well, she is a mutant that basically has the abilities to create psychic illusions. Illusions that feed off her opponent's fear, kind of like in the same vein as Loki's trickster magic. But as they begin to talk, she then tells Logan that, well, he isn't really supposed to be here and he is trespassing. But of course, Logan is determined to meet somebody, as he is on a hunt for somebody in particular. So Moonstar then uses her abilities, creating giant bears to try and threaten Logan and deter him off. But Logan then goes on to say that he hears that these demon bears love fear, and they can smell it from a world away. But that isn't his scent. He isn't that type of guy. He doesn't get scared. Logan has lived long enough and been in so many experiences that he doesn't feel fear like that anymore. And instead, it is feeding off the fear of another individual who was in the car. Another mutant by the name of Forge, which, as his name suggests, he has the ability to build, forge, and construct and instantly know any type of machine or technological device in his range. So think of Gray Matter from Ben 10 if you're familiar with him. Super smart, his ability is basically super intelligence, but only when it comes to machinery and devices. And of course, with Logan eventually getting his way, we pick up 2 days later, with him and Forge driving to a nearby desert location, the impact zone where everything went wrong, where Asteroid M crashed. Because as you know in this story, in Elseworld universe, there was an asteroid named Asteroid M that came crashing down to Earth, killing someone in particular, Magneto. And upon his death, he released the biggest EMP known to history, entirely engulfing the world and sending it back into the Dark Age, killing millions upon millions of people worldwide. And because of this, there has been a little cult going around. A group of fanatics who worship Magneto upon his death. But as they continue on their way to the initial site, Forge tries to talk Logan out of this, as he knows the road he is going down isn't a very good one, even for a man like Wolverine, who, while yes is a hero, still has a pretty dark path and dark urges. As Forge goes on to tell him, "Are you sure I can't talk you out of this? Retribution is a dark path and revenge is a master no man should serve." But Wolverine, knowing who he is, what he can do and his limits, he says, "Well, this is all I have left. Other mutants, other heroes, the X-Men, the superhero community, the world at large has been disbanded and plunged into an apocalypse. But eventually they are able to make it to the small little crater and the resting place of Magneto himself." And Forge goes in a little more detail about this cult, saying, "Something awful happened, so people believed that it couldn't be avoided and that it was fate, and that the true believers of Magneto was formed and they cleared this place of any remnants of the Asteroid M, as they declared it holy trinkets of their mutant prophet of doom." But of course his body is buried deep underground, so Wolverine turns to Forge, who is, as I mentioned before, pretty tech savvy, with Logan saying, "You surely got some kind of high-tech doodad we can dig him out with, right?" And out of everything he could have gave Logan, he gives him a basic normal shovel, for Logan to spend hours digging himself. And he does just that, eventually striking gold in the corpse of Magneto himself. But no, Logan didn't come on this mission just to see closure in what happened. He came for one very specific item, the helmet of Magneto. As you see, it has certain properties that, well, coming up will be very useful for him. So after pulling it off Magneto's decayed skull, he gives it over to Forge, as Forge looks over the helmet, knowing what he must do and must construct, saying a little more shielding, a touch of vibranium for feedback, and yes, he believes he can make it work. And after assumingly he is successful in whatever he was trying to build, we then pick up sometime later, a city that at this point, whose name has been erased, as we see the citizens of said city completely drooling, unresponsive, and mind control, brainwashed, an entire city full of innocent people. And this hooded figure that we are following even says as much, as this figure tracks his way through the city into the high up, almost castle top upon the hills. As we see this hooded figure's hands and feet are blue, almost looking like Nightcrawler in a way, but he finally is able to make it inside this structure. And inside, he finally sees the one person he was looking for, evil mutant and villain that goes by the name Mastermind, who is controlling this entire town using his telepathy. So think of a walking Charles Xavier who's using his abilities for evil, completely brainwashing this entire town for his bidding. And who was the one who was directly responsible for the death of Captain America and Bucky Barnes, along with the rest of the remaining S.H.I.E.L.D. operations. But as his hooded figure continues to walk in, he then demands to know where the rest of the villains he was working with and where they are. Omega Red, Deadpool, Sabertooth, and even Colossus, who has switched sides and even furthering his own selfish desires. But Mastermind here says no. While I do know where my companions are, I won't be the one giving up my secrets. Instead, I'll be taking all of yours. Because obviously, yeah, why would he just talk? Especially when he has one of the most broken abilities you can have, telepathy. Especially one as strong as this. And it seems like it is over for this hooded figure, as Mastermind starts to break his will and break his mind, shifting through everything hidden inside of his head. And this would have worked on any other lesser being. Maybe not lesser, but any other less prepared being. As this hooded figure then goes to take off his mask, and it is none other than Logan himself, wearing the new upgraded helmet of Magneto, which is completely immune to any type of telepathy, and making this villain, who had one overpowered ability, now completely useless, as without his telepathy, he is nothing more than a middle-aged man. And Logan, being the best he is at what he does, takes this opportunity to enact his revenge, as he lunges for Mastermind, saying it's too late. There isn't anyone here that can save you, popping his claws and getting ready to do the deed, literally severing his head from his body, but freeing and saving this entire town, giving them their individual lives back. And after a short while later, he then brings the severed head of Mastermind back to Forge, for Forge to use his technology and intelligence to shift through his mind to get his memories and the locations of where the other people are. As I've mentioned before, Deadpool, Colossus, Omega Red, and Sabertooth, because those are his main targets who Logan is getting his revenge on, along with doing whatever he can to try to save America and this worldwide EMP. But for Logan, that is all backburner. That is all step 2. Step 1 is his revenge. But Forge is eventually able to work his magic and get in, shifting through his memories and accessing locations through Mastermind's severed head and brain. Able to see the locations of these different characters because Mastermind kept a mental link between all of them, with Colossus being in Russia where you would think he would be, Omega Red not being too far behind, Deadpool showing up in multiple locations, moving between them all because nobody really wanted him around, and last but not least, Sabertooth, Creed. He has made a home in the desert. In this one, This one is personal for Logan as he decides this is his first target. Old business before new business. But before he sets off, he then asks Forge one more thing. A specialized motorcycle, which doesn't sound too crazy but will become very interesting and kind of a stupid and lazy way to push the plot forward a little later. But a week later, we then pick up in the middle of a desert where we see Sabertooth himself, feasting on some type of animal carcass and eating its meat. And with Sabertooth here, just not a care in the world, doing nothing, he then sees a light shine in the distance. And this light, this shine, is very important and interesting and kind of lazy as I said before, so just keep it in your head, as it shines on Sabertooth. And with Logan pulling up, being the 5'3" manlet that he is, Sabertooth towers over him, with Logan going on to start the conversation saying, "I bet you're surprised to see me alive, huh?" But Sabertooth has basically anticipated this, saying it will take a lot more than a bomb in his chest to stop him, so he figured Logan has a chance of doing the same. But what he is surprised about is seeing him here right now, because he thinks Logan is handling this as good as he does any other tragedy. Because in the long run, Logan always loses, so he's always looking to get even, and that he holds grudges all the way down. But this excites Sabertooth as he goes on to say, "I figured you would want to settle most of your grudges before you came up dead, because we both know you can't take me, and any revenge you want, it ends right here, and it ends right now," as they start their bloody and brutal fight. And during this fight, it seems Sabertooth has the complete upper hand, calling him weak but saying that he always has been. But to Sabertooth's downside, he gets cocky, with him literally going on to laugh and say that he could prolong this a bit, savor the experience, kick him while he's down, reminding Logan that he owns him and that he always will, as he literally beats him to a bloody pulp. And while Logan is down, Sabertooth even goes on to say that, "When I'm done here, when I'm done with you, I'm even going to take your ride," which is just more disrespectful than just beating him up. But because Sabertooth had his guard down, Logan gets one good strike in, stabbing him clean in the stomach with his adamantium claws, plunging it into his guts. And of course, Sabertooth having a pretty good healing factor, usually this wouldn't be that bad. This would be just a little pain, but he heals right up. But something has changed, something is different now. As it turns out, he isn't healing. And Logan then starts to make everything abundantly clear, because even though he came on a fancy new ride, the bike was specially built by Forge with a neutralizer inside of the headlamp, neutralizing his mutant abilities, his healing factor. So while Logan is healing up just fine, Sabertooth is bleeding out, slowly dying, instantly turning the tides in his fight into Logan's favor. Which, I mean, even though it's cool to see Logan win, this is just kind of a lazy way, just randomly off-screen showing Forge building a mutant dampening motorcycle lamp. Like, that is just a crazy concept, but here it is and we see it actually work. But of course, Sabertooth, having no fear and his pride too high to admit defeat and the possibility of losing to Logan, they start their battle up once more, as Logan takes another swipe through his leg and stomach. We see a battle-damaged Wolverine wander his way through a crowd. As you see, he is trying to get on a ship, heading towards his next potential targets, because currently Wolverine is on a bit of a revenge spree, getting his revenge on the people, former allies, and even villains who have wronged him. Because right now in this world, which is set in an alternate universe, which explains why everything got as bad as it did, not only are the Avengers other heroes, but the entire world is in chaos and many millions are dead, including us even seeing in the previous issue, Captain America, along with S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury, being killed by Mastermind and his little team here, which Wolverine is now trying to put an end to. So of course Logan eventually is able to get aboard and makes his way through the sea. And as he finally arrives more towards Russia and docks at a port, we see a bunch of the other people trying to leave said area, confused as to why someone like Logan would be going towards the danger and not from it. But of course, they don't know that Wolverine is a man on a mission, a bloody and brutal one. So as he starts his long journey into the snow, it eventually leads him to a power plant, something very valuable in a world where Magneto's death released a worldwide EMP, cutting off every source of power. But as he does arrive, he then makes note of something, saying something's not right. It is burning too bright. Now, why is the most valuable power source on a planet, one worth of death, murder, and betrayal, left unprotected to run hot and melt down? As he finally starts to put the pieces together and realizes that this isn't left unprotected and it's a trap, as Omega Red himself, the mutant villain, finally makes his appearance. And as they start to engage on each other, fighting to the death, each of these combatants fight to leave the other one here dead and alone in the cold. And as we see this brutal battle begin, we see Omega Red stabbing Wolverine through the chest with his tendrils, not only giving Wolverine excruciating pain, but every plague and disease in the book, slowing down his healing factor, which would potentially make it easier for Omega Red to finally finish him off. But while they are fighting, Omega Red then goes on to explain that Wolverine has no place here anyway. The power source that is here, the power plant, is incompatible. Something is wrong with it. Yeah, we have fire and power, but only for a much shorter term than we originally thought. Basically telling Wolverine to turn around and go. It is not worth it. If he has come after the power source, the power plant, he should just pack up and leave. But Omega Red doesn't know that Wolverine doesn't care about any of this. No, he doesn't care about persevering into this new world. He just wants his revenge on people who have wronged him. And right now, Omega Red is on that list and in his way, as Wolverine, using his adamantium claws, cuts Omega Red's tendrils, lunging for him, telling the villain, yeah, I could feel it. I could feel everything you have infected me with, but I'll take it all and endure every bit of it, just so I can put my hands around your neck one last time. As Wolverine, being a man of pure willpower, pushes through and gets close enough so he can wrap his hands around Omega Red's neck, as he literally chokes the life out of the villain, ending this battle and ending him, crossing off another target on Wolverine's revenge list, which only leaves 2 more. But as Wolverine is successful here, he then takes and drags the body of Omega Red, literally hanging it on a tree, saying if this power plant is going bad and is going to melt down, he should leave some sort of sign to deter people from getting close, as he walks off to further investigate what is going on. And after getting close enough, he sees a figure on the top of the reactor, someone literally bathing in the heat and radioactive material of it. So Wolverine decides to make his way up there to confront whoever this is and potentially add another body on his long list of murders. And who is this mysterious person, you may ask? Well, it is none other than Deadpool himself, which is bad for Deadpool and good for Wolverine, as Deadpool was a part of the team that ambushed and started this whole Wolverine revenge spree, meaning he's another target that Wolverine has to kill, has to take down permanently. But this interaction is a little different than the ones previously. As you see, Deadpool here isn't on go mode. No, him and Logan have a little bit of a downtime. They sit and talk things out. Maybe not talk things out, and more talk things over. Talk over what has gone on between these two and the entire world at large. And here we see something kind of left field from Deadpool. You see, Deadpool actually shows a little bit of remorse, some guilt from his actions and what he has done, or at least as much as he can with this entire issue, not even starting with him, but Magneto and his problem. And after confirming that there is something wrong with this nuclear reactor and it is spewing out fallout every 20 minutes, Wade then goes on to continue saying, I feel terrible about what I did. I mean, maybe I could live with it if everything turned out okay, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I chose poorly, which is nothing new, but normally I do a pretty good job of just getting over it, or just pushing down the pain until I forget that it's there. But this time, it's too much. And over the course of this conversation, we see that the nuclear fallout, heat, and radiation is getting more intense, literally sizzling their skin and their costumes, causing it to burn away and deteriorate. But of course, these two beings have healing factors, so that's not too much of an issue. But with that, Deadpool then stands up, saying, okay then, time to end the show, I suppose. Getting ready to literally jump into the reactor and essentially killing himself, tearing him apart piece by piece. And even though Deadpool says it's because he can't escape the guilt and remorse from everything that has happened, I really think it's just him being bored. Because Deadpool isn't like Wolverine. Wolverine would be happy to retire off in the countryside, hunt for his food, and live out like a wild beast man. Deadpool, on the other hand, isn't like that. And with the world going, well, horrible and into chaos, almost all of the previous heroes, villains, and other things Deadpool liked surrounded himself before gone, or at least completely changed what it used to be, Deadpool doesn't really have a huge motivation to live anymore, at least not in this new world that it is. So as he says his farewells to Logan, he then starts to fall off the edge, telling Logan that he will see him on the other side. But before he is able to go out himself, Logan stops him, grabbing him by his belt, telling him to hold on, saying that he just can't watch Deadpool do this. Seemingly for the first time, and for his first target on his revenge list, Logan himself is maybe showing some remorse, showing some willingness to forgive. And Deadpool, hearing this, is ecstatic, thinking that this means that Wolverine has forgiven him and wants to team up, giving Deadpool a new purpose in this torn world. With Deadpool saying, please tell me that you want us to team up one last time. We could right all the wrongs in an R-rated kind of way. But Logan, ignoring all of Deadpool's ecstatic fantasies, he simply asks Wade one simple question. Do you really think someone who's done all the things that we have done can truly be forgiven? And Deadpool, with actual tears in his eyes and a smile on his face, says, you know what? I guess I do. I do think people like us could be forgiven, but Wolverine, having lived hundreds of years, doesn't see it this way, as he literally pushes Deadpool down the reactor himself, saying, well, I don't, sending Deadpool, one of the last targets on his list, down the reactor to be fully disintegrated and consumed by the radioactive heat and material, ending the Merc with a mouth, and pushing Logan forward on his journey for full revenge no matter who is the target. As we do experience a little bit of a time jump, a complete week later, as we pick up with Logan on the countryside, digging some sort of grave with his bare hands and a shovel. And here we see this grave isn't for him. No, of course not. He's still a man on a mission. He doesn't have time just to roll over and die, accept this new reality of this broken world and give up. Instead, this grave is for the last member on his list, his revenge list, as he turns to a house in the distance yelling out, I know you can see me from in there, so how are we going to do this? Either you're coming out, or I'm coming in, as he says with a smile on his face. Because yes, this is Colossus, the last member a part of that team, and the last member that Wolverine needs his revenge on. And this is Colossus in his human form, which sometimes over the years he has the ability to switch back between his metal and flesh and bone form, or sometimes he's just stuck permanently in his metal one. but this time we see he is able to go to his normal human one. And so as they finally confront each other face to face, Colossus is just completely over this, telling Logan to go home, and that he has no wishes for things to end like this. But Logan simply says he doesn't have a home anymore because of Colossus and what he has done. Because yes, Colossus, the former hero, the former X-Men, former partner, and someone Logan will consider his family, has betrayed not only the heroes but Logan himself. He has sided with the villains, sided with a evil maniac who has caused nothing but death and destruction, because Colossus chose a side. He wanted to be on the better side of this new world and not on the losing side, especially because he has somebody to protect. As when Logan asks if there's somebody else in the house over there, Colossus says yes and armors up, going in complete metal mode. And as Colossus goes metal mode, Wolverine pops his own adamantium metal claws, telling Colossus that all he can imagine him now is 6 feet under, as he lunges for him to start their battle. But Colossus, being the bigger, stronger, taller man, literally just grabs Logan by his face, throws him many feet away. And as they go on to continue their fight, Wolverine, even though he's trying to kill Colossus and end this, he still needs answers. He wants to know why he did it. Why did he betray everyone? Now, of course, there was no surprise with the others, even Deadpool, because, you know, Deadpool's always been a anti-hero, whereas Colossus has always traditionally been a real hero. Wolverine says, "You were the best of us," as he slices Colossus across his stomach, spewing his metal guts. And Colossus, now hurt on the floor, says, "Sometimes you just have to pick a side, even allies that despise you, because it is the best for your family," referring to whoever is in the house and who he needs to protect. But Logan sees it differently. Logan says he, himself, and the rest of the X-Men, the heroes, was his family. But Colossus, now getting a second wind, grabs Wolverine's arms, holding him up by his neck, saying, "No, you are my friend, not family," and that wasn't enough, as he literally pulls his arm off of his socket, tossing it aside with his adamantium bone sticking out of the flesh. And here we see a moment like none other, Wolverine seemingly very vulnerable and very killable. And it looks like Colossus is going to be the one to finally do Wolverine in, and Logan permanently, even going on to tell him, "I am sorry that it ended this way." And in response, Logan says 3 simple words. Some of the last words that Colossus might hear. "Yeah, me too," as he uses his only good arm, popping his claws and sinking them deep into Colossus' skull, killing him on the spot, ending not only one of the previous X-Men and partners that Wolverine would have gave his life for before, but one of the last targets and people on his revenge list, as Logan looks over the body and picks up his broken, detached arm, putting it back on his shoulder and letting it heal. Because now it's all over. Logan picks up the deceased body of Colossus, bringing him to the grave that he has dug before, putting him in something that he didn't give the other members and other villains on his revenge list the time of day, because Colossus at the very least meant something to him. So even though he had to go, Logan decided to get rid of him tastefully, giving him his own burial, as he walks away with an X sticking out of the grave, saying, "And now it's done." But this isn't the end. No, even though Logan has technically got his revenge, there is more to the story. Picking up an entire 2 decades later, 20 years after the giant catastrophe of Asteroid M, which completely wiped out any technology on Earth and a lot of the heroes with it, it seems like these 20 years really haven't been that kind to Logan, with him looking almost extremely more aged than he realistically should be with only 20 years. But still, he's rocking a full gray beard and essentially has his old man Logan style. But it seems like everything isn't just all doom and gloom, because over the past 20 years, there's been certain little strong havens across the world, one in particular named the Light Shadow, where people gather together and try to live a normal life despite of everything that's going on. Especially thanks to Forge, the mutant that can essentially create anything with technology. Over the 2 decades, he got the power working in some capacity, powering up this little strip of land, which is cool. I mean, getting to see all these people, and especially Logan, be content and maybe even happy with this little life they've created here is a good thing, because as we will find out, this is the only happy moment that he's going to have here and right now in this comic, and presumably for the future to come. Because later on, things get pretty wild, and Logan, true to this comic's name, is going to have to seek revenge. And with that, we move over a week later, where we see Logan in his iconic costume, but again, looking older and more aged. And this place, the structure, this building right here, he hasn't been here in an entire year. And immediately he can tell something is off, as he sniffs the air and smells the smell of death everywhere. Rotting animal carcasses just strung up around. And this right here, this action is very deliberate, because Logan continues to walk into this building, he finds Victor Creed, the Sabertooth, who himself has seen better days, missing an arm and eye and is essentially in a wheelchair. Because Sabertooth is not only depowered, but Logan just keeps him here for fun, almost just to torture him for everything that Sabertooth has done before. Because if you remember previously, Logan worked with Forge to create a device that can nullify his mutant powers, letting Wolverine not only defeat Sabertooth, but imprison him and keep him here as some sort of guinea pig, some sort of experiment. Because for Sabertooth, a quick death would be way too simple. For all the things that he has done to Logan over the years, Logan has been drawing his revenge out over the last 2 decades. And here here we see a very interesting interaction where we see the Sabertooth going on to almost egg and taunt Logan to continue to torture and hurt him, with him going on to say, well then, I guess it's time for you to start cutting more pieces off. But it seems like the Wolverine had different plans for this visit here, as he goes on to say, not today. And here the tension starts to rise within this little cabin here. Sabertooth getting visibly angry that Logan is seemingly going soft on him, but Logan goes on to remind him that no, this isn't forgiveness, that's something that will never exist between the two. The reason why he killed the other mutants, Deadpool, Colossus, Omega Red, and so on, was because they had it coming. It was revenge. But this here between Wolverine and Sabertooth, this is something else entirely. It's justice. Justice of the shared history these two have together and everything that Sabertooth has done to Logan over the hundreds of years that they have been alive. But still, Sabertooth, after all this time just living at the mercy of Logan, goes on to say, then what are you waiting for? Get on with it and just do it already. Kill me. Which, yes, makes sense in a state that the Sabertooth is now. Death will probably be better than being tortured and left in his random abandoned place by himself, just waiting to die with no powers or anything. But it also serves a dual purpose, as you will soon see shortly. But Logan here just came to check up on him. He isn't interested in fighting or torturing the Sabertooth anymore, as he packs up his stuff and goes on to leave, telling him that he's not interested. And in about a year again when Logan comes back, maybe he'll feel different about it this time. But right after Wolverine goes and leaves, things become more clear. As Sabertooth goes on to speak out to an audience we don't get to see, he goes on to say, it worked. Normally he can sniff out anything, but the smell of death, all the dead animals around, overpowers his senses. It's too tough to cut through. So the Wolverine didn't know you were here. But now you know what he truly is, and what you're up against, as we actually get to see who he is talking to. The Omega Clan, 4 distinct beings. Those being the Omega Clan, different programmed clones with different power sets based on the genetic material of Omega Red, you know, someone who Logan previously killed, and also a hidden 4th figure in the back, who becomes very interesting later on. But even after seeing that little confrontation firsthand, the group of villains here don't really seem moved or fazed about Logan, even going on to say that he didn't seem like much to me, just another old man haunted by his past in a world that no longer exists. Of course, being very overconfident, which might even lead to their downfall and death later on, with Victor Creed, the Sabertooth, even going on to recognize this, saying maybe the Omega Clan is made up of sterner and tougher stuff than Omega Red himself, but I swear the last thing you should be is overconfident. But once again, they don't really care what Creed has to say. They all came here with one goal on their mind: revenge. Vengeance for their fallen father, the original Omega Red, who Logan has of course killed and hung his body from a tree. And when we see all the villains here made up their mind and ready to go after him, Sabertooth almost gives his blessing, telling them happy hunting. Which is ironic because, as we will soon see, this is going to be anything but happy, because later on we see Logan still in costume, just stopping to rest a little bit with his horse, when suddenly his senses start to pick up someone, movement, which of course it's the Omega Clan having tracked Logan down, getting ready to kill him, or try their best to kill him, even though Wolverine at this point in time is not virtually unkillable, but very hard to unless you know what you're doing. But maybe after all these years, Logan, who looks visibly aged with the gray hair and all, maybe his healing factor has gotten weaker, maybe he is easier to beat. And so with everyone getting in their battle stances, Logan, still being confused about what all this is, goes on to say, so who are you guys even supposed to be? The new Omega Reds? But as we will find out, no, not quite. Each of the 3 beings right here have different powers and names. Yes, you have the one who obviously looks like Omega Red, then you have Omega Black and Omega White. All clones from the original genetic material from Omega Red, and they are here for revenge. And eventually they seemingly get the upper hand on Logan. It's a 3-on-1. Logan, probably haven't been in combat in a while now, is a little rusty, as they all start to grab and infect Wolverine, infect him with a bunch of different diseases and poisons, because due to their power set, they can infect and control different pathogens, essentially poisoning Logan from the inside out, as we see his skin start to turn green and grotesque, coughing up copious amount of blood, and almost looking like it's working, killing him. But even still, Logan isn't just defenseless, as he goes on to use his very sharp adamantium claws to cut the arms off one of the robotic teens, before turning to the rest and calling out who's next. And seeing how Wolverine is still standing even after they did their trick and infected him, they realize, yes, maybe they did bite off more than they can chew. Maybe they underestimated Wolverine a little too much, because as Omega Black goes on to say, careful brother, he's quicker than I thought. We must come at him from both sides. With Logan still not even being worried about the situation, he says, whatever way you want, pal, it's fine with me. But I just have to know one thing. What's the little camera for? As we see a little orb floating in the background, recording or someone watching this entire interaction. But instead of immediately answering him, they both go to rush him once more. Again, getting the upper hand because it is still a 2-on-1, with Omega Black stabbing Logan through the chest, infecting him once more, causing him to get even greener and sicker due to the different diseases and plagues infecting his body. But Omega Black goes on to say, oh, that camera, that's just for our audience. But Wolverine, being a man of straight willpower and determination, and of course a very potent healing factor, just pushes through it all, pushing through the pain of his body being mutated and mutilated from the inside out. With him going on to say, well, in that case, since people are watching, is there anyone you want to say goodbye to? Reaching out while still being stabbed through the stomach and grabbing Omega Black. And this here just confuses him because he goes on to say, I don't understand. I'm pumping 6 different toxins and hundreds of thousands of bacteria into you right now. Why won't you just die? And you know, Logan has a simple rebuttal, saying, isn't it obvious? It's cause I've just got really good manners. So I'll die, but you first. Popping his claws and shoving it straight through his head, killing Omega Black on the spot. And now with 2 down and only 1 more to go, we see the Omega Red successor jump into the fray to do a one-on-one, which at this point, if you just seen you guys lose a 3v1, what makes you think you can do better on a one-on-one? And instantly we see Wolverine get the upper hand, his healing factor slowly kicking back in and healing him back to full health as he goes and slashes this new Omega Red across the face, all while whoever is watching from that camera just stares on. But in the midst of their battle, this new Omega Red goes on to say, when he found us, we thought he was mad, but now I see the truth. He was right. You must be taken out in a race from this world, and I am going to be the one to do it. Still being overconfident that apparently he can go one-on-one with the Wolverine, but him plus all of the other Omega clan couldn't do 3-on-1. And we see him immediately pay for this as Wolverine lunges in, stabbing him through the chest and ending him right there on the spot. So yes, while pretty brutal, in this world where all the power went out and the Avengers and different hero groups, the other X-Men are all wiped out and gone, there is no longer a superhero, supervillain. There's only killed or be killed. And right now with this little group here, this Omega clan trying to kill Logan, Logan really had no other option but to defend himself and kill them instead. But there was one of the trio he didn't fully finish off yet, as we see him make his way back to Omega White, grabbing one of Omega Red's tendrils and wrapping it around his neck, because there was something that Omega Red said that Logan surely picked up on. Omega Red said when he found us, and now Logan simply wants to know who is he. But Omega White still just sticking to what he knows. He isn't just going to tell him who orchestrated this entire event, still trying to infect Logan with different poisons and toxins, making his skin turn back grotesque. But Logan, now seeing that this is going nowhere, he then decides to threaten him very effectively as he goes on to say, you didn't have to come after me. You chose this. And just know I can make this last all day because I'm the best there is at what I do. And here we see one of the clones of Omega Red utter 4 simple words. Creed. It was Creed. Meaning the Sabertooth Victor Creed orchestrated this off in the beginning. Somehow in his little confinement, he sought out the Omega clan and that 4th mysterious stranger to come and find Wolverine to kill and end him where Sabertooth failed. And now Logan, realizing that Sabertooth is still dangerous, he decides forget everything I said before, turning to the camera and saying out another very efficient threat, saying, I know you can hear me, so listen up. I changed my mind. You're not going to have to wait a year, Creed, because I'm going to be seeing you real soon. Obviously to the dismay of the Sabertooth as his plan failed. The Omega clan just 3 more bodies on Logan's long kill list. Sabertooth even going on to continue to talk to this 4th mysterious stranger who stayed behind, saying I tried to warn them, but they just wouldn't listen. Do you see what he is? A force of nature, relentless and inevitable. Yeah, I played my part in making him what he is now, but I know now that that was a mistake and he has to be stopped. The Omega clan were just replicas of the real thing, clones, and it's clear it's going to take more than poor copies of the original to bury the Wolverine. No, it'll take someone like you, someone who wants, who needs revenge just as bad as he does. It takes a vengeance that you just can't stop thinking about, a taste you simply just can't get out of your mouth. And I know you have it in you, I can see it. Hate burning deep within you. Honestly, I don't even know how you stand it. Him standing there breathing, living, while your father lies buried in the ground. As we finally get to see who this stranger he is talking to, the son of Colossus, who previously Logan murdered in cold blood. Now his son, all grown up over the last 20 years, is alive and well, looking strong and ready to take revenge, and might even be the one to finally put the Wolverine down, as we see him carrying an ominous and glowing sword on his back, which looks like and possibly could be Magic's soul sword. A magical artifact of great power, and wielded by someone as strong as Colossus' son, could spell a lot of trouble for Wolverine if they have to come head to head and blow for blow. We move over and see a couple of interesting characters, and in the past. Here we see a father and son, but not just any random civilians, but Colossus and his now new unknown son, who at this point in this universe, of course, with the world being obliterated and everybody essentially being thrown back into the Stone Ages, Colossus, if he wanted a place in this new world to survive and live on, he essentially was forced into doing some less than savory things, with Colossus' son even asking him that he used to be a hero. But from Colossus's perspective, he doesn't see it this way, going on to say, yes, I was strong, stronger than most, and I suspect one day you will be the same. But I wasn't a hero. I was just a man forced into situations bigger than myself and forced to do things that I now regret. Continuing on, this life we have now is better than the old one. I would rather be your father than a hero any day of the week. Which it seems like Colossus has a happy ending. But knowing where we are, of course, we know this doesn't last, as we exactly know what happened to him in his fate. Murdered by Wolverine for his involvement with some of the other heroes and place in this new world. In the moment, and from Logan's perspective, it seemed right. Colossus has done evil, and now he needed to pay. Wolverine needed to get his revenge. Unfortunately, though, Logan had no regard for the victims and lives that he altered by killing Colossus, specifically in the form of his son, who is now teaming up with Logan's worst enemy, Sabertooth, to finally get his own revenge on Logan for killing his father. Because now, as we move back into the current present, which is still many years into the future, as we see Logan is pretty older than he usually would be, we see him arrive to finally end this once and for all, take on and confront Sabertooth, his long-awaited rival, in this mysterious figure who we know is Colossus' son. And I say it's something that we know because Logan himself had no idea. As when he finally sees him, sees the child of the man he murdered in cold blood, he says it's like seeing a ghost. But as I said, Sabertooth is also here. And yeah, as soon as Logan and Sabertooth are now standing across from each other, they instantly get to arguing and bickering, with Logan going on to purposely taunt and berate Sabertooth, going on to say, so I guess it was always going to end this way. Me standing over you, and you, my beaten dog. Which to Sabertooth is absolutely fighting words, as he even gets angry, mad enough where even in his damaged and not as powerful state, he wants to get a piece of Logan and engage on a head-on-head confrontation. With the son of Colossus instantly picking up and throwing him, much like the famous fastball special that Wolverine himself used to do. Unfortunately, this has to be one of the dumbest things Sabertooth could have done, with him not only being old but depowered and no longer in fighting condition, getting within reach of Logan, who himself still has his healing factor and claws that can cut through almost anything. Because instantly as they get closer to each other, Logan just ends this battle within seconds. It's almost underwhelming to a large degree, as Wolverine splits him in half without a second thought, going on to say, everybody has a plan till they don't. Which for a rivalry that lasted years, decades, and it ending just like that, even Logan himself feels the underwhelmment of this conclusion, with him going on to say, I thought it would feel different. I thought after all this time that getting my revenge would make me feel better, complete in some sort of way. But that's the thing, I don't feel anything. The same anger burning inside of my heart, like a giant wound that just won't heal. Logan then telling this son of Colossus that maybe he should think about that. Maybe anger and revenge isn't the way. It's only going to leave him empty in the same way Logan does now. But this advice kind of does the opposite effect that Logan would have wanted. Because the son of Colossus pulling out the soul sword, you know, the very powerful weapon forged by magic herself, he goes on to say, it's all I think about. The revenge, ending you, every single second since you've killed my father, who was your friend. But don't lecture me like I'm you, some sort of monster with a sea of bodies left in your wake. I've never killed before, but seeing you here, finally standing before me, I think I very much have to try. And if I don't, I will never be able to sleep at night again. And with that, seeing how there really isn't any backing down or getting out of this, they get ready to throw down. And here's the really interesting part. As Colossus' son, whose real name is Nikolai, but for now on I'm just going to call him Kid Colossus going forward because I think it's funny. But as Kid Colossus goes on to say the only realistic outcome of this battle, he says, this probably only ends one way, in violence and pain and eventually death, and then you'll heal. Even Logan himself realizes this to be the case, so he does something pretty crazy. He picks up Forge's special device and invention, a neutralizer, something that, as it sounds, can be used to take away or neutralize a mutant's powers, which is the same thing Logan used to depower Sabertooth all those years ago. But here, he actually shines it on himself, making this up-and-coming battle a fair one-on-one, because as Logan says, he's doing this in the memory of Kid Colossus' father. And with that out of the way, with these two being seemingly on a more even playing field, it's on. But we see it's immediately a cop-out, because as soon as Logan lunges forward, Kid Colossus uses the Soul Sword and essentially opens a portal to hell itself, telling Logan it's time to pay for his sins in such a place where sins belong. As you may or may not know though, in the Marvel universe there are many different places or pockets of reality that are seemingly like a traditional hell, such as Hell, only spelled with one L, ruled by Hela in the Asgardians. Then you have the Olympian space of Hades. But in this case though, it's Limbo, which is more magical in nature, sure, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically just hell. And although in some cases you could say that Logan's life has been a living hell, yet here in Limbo, he gets to see that reality very firsthand. And the situation he is in now couldn't have come at any worse of a time, because yeah, seemingly Wolverine now is at his weakest, without his mutant powers of regeneration and being able to heal. Meaning if he is able to sustain a fatal injury here, it's going to be most certainly over for Logan. And this is very evident as when they finally come to blows, Logan, despite having more years of experience than Kid Colossus has even been alive, the fight is surprisingly close. Yet Logan himself still has some advantages, such as his unbreakable adamantium bones, so that he can't fully be dismembered when the Soul Sword impales his arm. Wolverine, in the midst of battle, even still going on to taunt Nikolai, saying that he's going to have to swing harder than that if he wants to win. And yeah, after a bit of fighting, Logan using his decades of experience in combat time, he's eventually able to blindside him and literally blinding him using the acidic blood of some random creature. Not only that, but he's able to get a dominant position on top of his opponent, getting ready to deliver the final blow, telling him that here in hell, everything burns until it doesn't. And this is when he finally sees it, something that makes him pause and hesitates. From his perspective, looking down at the son of Colossus, he sees Peter, the original Colossus. Now, whether it's from guilt, or maybe just all the emotions and trauma he's been through finally just manifesting, the almost hallucination of the original Colossus asks Wolverine how did it come to this? How did things turn so bad? But like I said, Wolverine got distracted, which in his life or death battle is something you just can't do, as immediately Kid Colossus gets the upper hand, knocking Logan away, with him now having the dominant position, the Soul Sword in hand ready to deliver the final blow. And even Wolverine himself encourages this, telling him to go on, do it. You're right to kill me, and I deserve it. And with that, he actually does, plunging the Soul Sword into his chest. And with Wolverine seemingly without his mutant healing factor, this would be it. This would be the death of this Wolverine, this Logan. After many years and getting his revenge on many people, eventually it all comes back to him. As the comic even goes on to say, that's how it always ends, revenge. It doesn't matter how much you lie to yourself at the start, or even how noble you think what you're doing is. Do it long enough, and let it consume you, and you will always end up in the same spot, in a hell of your own making. But on the contrary, there is a little bit of an upside, with it continuing on saying, with a little grace and a little mercy, some people might be able to get past it. Literally being paralleled by Kid Colossus killing Wolverine, he turns and leaves Limbo, leaving behind the revenge of his past, the hell of his own making, onto a better future. And this is exactly what Logan wanted. He didn't want to just keep the cycle of revenge, hurt, and trauma just keep going on, with him even going on to further monologue. I hoped a clean end for me will mean that for the kid, a fresh start. But for me, that's just never going to happen. As of course, Logan being very hard to kill, he is still alive, because it's revealed that he messed with Forge's neutralizer, so in reality, he never really lost his powers. So yes, he is alive, but the most important part in what he wanted to happen still came to pass. He wanted Kid Colossus to get over this revenge and live a seemingly normal life past this. Yet for Logan himself, he says that he never will, hoping that the kid will believe what happened here and move on to heal in a way that he never can. But that still leaves a pretty big problem here. Logan, he's still stuck in hell, stuck in limbo. Unfortunately for him though, with his still mutant powers, he still has a lot of life left and a lot of anger to get off. Because in Limbo, there's not a lot of things to do really, it's just more pain and destruction, which is something that Logan over the years has become a master in, with him immediately get into a fight, almost clearing out hell itself, a task that the Doomslayer would be pretty proud of, with him going on to say, revenge led me here, and my nature made sure of it, down a path I was never getting off of, so I guess in the end I got exactly what I deserved. So if that's the case, why not make the best of it? As we see after an unknown amount of time later, Logan literally single-handedly rips and tears his way through the forces of Limbo, making it to the castle and the current ruler of this underworld, until he meets face to face with the now current king, telling him that there is some pretty bad news, that he is in his seat. So yes, it seems like Logan, after everything in this alternate universe, he never got his happy ending. He didn't even get the sweet satisfaction of death. Instead here, Logan is going to continue living down the path that he's always known, except now he's going to do it as the king of Limbo, the king of hell, which in and of itself is a very interesting line of thought of what could even happen with Logan in this new position, but one that isn't going to be explored as this video, an entire miniseries, comes to a close. So yes, that was Wolverine's Revenge, a pretty short 5-issue miniseries, but one that took some very interesting routes. While at times it did feel kind of rushed and things were left out for the sake of the story moving and ending where it is now with Logan, the king of Limbo,
But I for one thought it was pretty enjoyable and pretty interesting seeing just how in this alternate universe, Logan eventually gets his revenge and how it didn't even complete him. Anyways, if you have enjoyed or have any comments or questions, leave them all in the comments down below. As always, this was AJ here at the Hero Informer, and thank you for watching.